Looks like we have some news on the new clan boss. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we have news that has leaked or dropped. I guess it's not really a leak because it's allowed to be public. Plarium hasn't told us to not talk about this, not that they tell me anything. We have the Viper form of the new boss. Now, this indicates that it is going to be a mythical. It looks like this boss can be of multiple different affinities. And there's some hints in here that talk about we will have similar versions of this going all the way from easy / normal all the way to ultra nightmare. So this looks like this may be a daily clan boss, more in the lines of the current Demon Lord clan boss that we have. I call him Derek. We'll get a chance to see which ones we have here, what we've got, and what he's going to do. So let's go take a look at some of his abilities here. First of all, having read the kit, this kit looks a lot more complicated and it looks a lot more like we're going to have a boss similar to Amius versus a one similar to the Demon Lord clan boss or even Hydra. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Just to state this here, this is a 5-year-old game. So I understand that some things will be challenging for new players, and that's fine. But you have to aim some of these challenges to current players to make them challenging enough for current players to actually have to invest in this and be interested in this, or else the content ends up being a bit of a dud. Now you can go a little overboard, as they have gone in some of these previous bosses that they've then had to nerf ahead of time, because if they make them too inaccessible, it becomes too hard to ever catch up in the first place either. So we'll see what kind of rewards we get out of this. We'll see how they balance it. But this kit's going to be very complex. And this is only one form of an at least 2-form boss. So keep that in mind, because we're not going to know everything about the kit just from reading this. So we have the Viper form here. Viper form's A1 is an attack all enemies. If there are any dead enemies or the initial attack kills at least one enemy, places an extra hit. So you do not want people dead. And ideally, you don't want people dying. Has a 50% chance of placing a fear, true fear, freeze, provoke, sleep, stun, or petrification on each enemy for 1 turn. All of this randomness means it's going to be very difficult to pick champions that are either immune to some of these things or prevent some of these things outside of simply block debuffs. So that's going to be very frustrating. Now, to be fair, a boss's A1 is the 3rd skill they use. For example, the Demon Lord clan boss's A1 is his single hit stun. So this is the 3rd follow-up stun effective hit for the clan boss. At least that's the way it looks like so far. And that's fine. But it is what we're going to have to deal with. And it's definitely interesting, and I'll tell you why a little bit later as well. So A2 attacks all enemies. This attack deals single target damage to each target individually rather than AoE damage. That is kind of important because certain passives work off of AoE or individual damage. For example, UDK can block individual damage, so UDK could technically take the first hit from this, although he's got a 50% chance to do that. There's other reasons that individual target is different as well. Duchess's passive only works versus AoE. Stalwart gear works versus AoE. So Stalwart gear, not as valuable against this boss, which is frustrating because I think Stalwart gear needs a bit of a buff. Before attacking, places a Hex debuff and a 100% heal reduction debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. Instantly activates all poison debuffs on all enemies 2 times. Then transfers all debuffs from the new clan boss to all enemies under Hex or heal reduction debuffs placed by this skill. If you're not blocking these or resisting these, and to be fair, it does not say irresistible, so resistance could actually play a role here. You're basically going to get all the debuffs that he currently has transferred to your champions because you're going to end up with Hex and heal reduction. So again, this looks like you're going to need to try to keep up block debuffs constantly, which I guess is fine, but I know that's one thing that they've been trying to avoid doing, and they've made bosses where you can't have it up all the time. So we'll take a look and see. All right, so we move on to the A3 here. Attacks all enemies before attacking, steals all buffs from all enemies except for continuous heal buffs. So continuous heal, going to be very helpful here. Places 3 5% poison debuffs and a 25% poison sensitivity debuff for 3 turns. then increases the duration of all poison debuffs on all enemies by 1 turn, and instantly activates any poison debuffs on all enemies. We're going to need protected block debuffs. So protection gear gets a bit of a buff and is going to be even more important now, which is going to make the Hydra clan stuff more interesting and more important as well, because you're going to want that 9-piece protection. It also means champions that bring protected buffs automatically are going to be helpful here as well. So this is going to be, this is already looking to be a very frustrating fight. I can see a couple champions that will be very good for this, particularly Elytrion Blade Master, who was a limited edition champion, so that is going to be very rough for a lot of people to grab. He gets a bunch of protected buffs when it's a boss fight, so he is going to be very, very clutch here for this particular boss fight, and that's going to be unfortunate, because if he's one of the best for this boss fight and you can't get him, that's not going to be a lot of fun for a lot of people. So he's also throwing poisons for 3 turns and then increasing the duration of all the poisons and then instantly activating them. That's basically what Tio does. So there'll still be 3 turns of poisons when they're done. So I suspect he's going to A3 first, get the poisons out there, steal all your buffs. Then he's going to activate them all 2 more times. Then he's going to try to stun you and then back to the same one. A3, I should say. So, all right, first passive. Transforms the new clan boss into its ultimate form and removes all buffs and debuffs. So he's going to instantly cleanse, but he removes all buffs as well, although I don't see him buffing himself, so I don't know if that's really a big deal. Actually, he's stealing buffs, so it is an issue. This is probably going to be on like a 4-turn cooldown, or maybe a 5-turn cooldown. We'll see. It depends on how they do it. But basically what will happen is, as this ticks over, he'll transform as a passive. So once this is off cooldown, he'll transform, and then he'll go on cooldown again. And then he'll transform, then he'll go on cooldown again. That's kind of how Amius works, so this makes some sense as well. Deadly Contagion. When an enemy is killed, places 1 Necrosis stack on all other enemies. Necrosis cannot be resisted or blocked. Necrosis stacks can only be removed by reviving dead allies. If multiple champions are revived, the number of Necrosis stacks removed is equal to the number of champions revived. So this Necrosis, I have no idea what it does. I suspect it's going to amplify poisons, but it could do something else. And it could be something that is going to cause problems for the other form, so we'll have to see on that. But basically, if people stay dead, you get this necrosis build up. But if you keep everybody revived, the necrosis will go away. Interesting, I guess. Definitely a little odd there. But I can see that flowing up and down if people are constantly dead in this fight. And if you keep everyone alive, the necrosis is not going to be an issue. Passive effect. Revived enemies will have 25% less HP and 25% less turn meter. So basically they will have, you get revived with less HP and less turn meter. So anything that's a 100% is less. Even the max of a Cardinal, for example, will be 25% less turn meter, which is interesting. So whenever a new clan boss kills an enemy, it removes any block active skills debuff from itself, which is interesting because that tells you block active skills can be placed on the boss. So that's one way to actually possibly attack this boss is block active skills. There's a couple of other ones that are interesting there as well. The start of the turn, the clan boss's turn, transfers all poison debuffs to all enemies. All transfer debuffs last for 2 turns. So this guy basically is shedding his poisons every time he takes a turn. So poisons, and this is a start, he may not take any poison damage at all. So poisons are going to be bad against this boss because all he's going to do is throw them back on your team. And then he ignites them constantly. So poison's bad. You're going to want cleansing. You're going to want ways to deal with poisons, and you're not going to bring a poison champion, which is unfortunate because I think poison really needs a better place in the game right now. But it's also interesting, and makes you fight poisons a little bit. So active effect denies 1 enemy revival attempt. If multiple enemies are revived at once, will deny 1 random revival attempt. So basically it's a Lydia passive. So he's going to block a revive occasionally for 1 champion. At least it's 1 champion, so it's not too bad if you have an AoE. You don't get everybody revived at the same time, so that's good. 5-turn cooldown on that. That might be a clue. So we might do it once per, rotation, for example. So, and the final passive, the Almighty Viper, immune to petrification, stun, freeze, sleep, provoke, block passive skills, fear, true fear, hunter's gaze, berserk, and enfeeble. So he is not immune to block active skills. As you saw there earlier, he has a chance to remove that but he can get hit with it. And he's also not immune to decreased speed. So decreased speed may be helpful here as well. We'll see. Incoming damage inflicted by skills that scale based on max HP cannot exceed certain, depending on the difficulty. That's pretty much identical to what the current clan boss uses. Basically, max HP hitters are probably not going to be the way to go here. They could be. It depends on if 200,000 HP on Ultra Nightmare for a single hit. If that's a big enough deal, that's great. And to be fair, somebody like a Newt is actually really good in Clan Boss, but like a Cold Heart is not very good in Clan Boss because that max HP hit only on 4 turns is not that great. So damage taken from 1 tick of poison can't exceed 10,000 and 20,000. That's pretty standard for Clan Boss. HP burn maxes at 40k HP. That's pretty standard. That's double what Hydra maxes out to. Is lesser. It's still less than what the Demon Lord is, I believe. I believe Demon Lord caps at 75,000. Reflected damage taken from War Master Giant Slayers cannot exceed 1,000 HP. Basically, Geomancer is not going to be just the answer from this. Same with Brogni are not going to be just the answer from this. Although, again, you usually get a lot of hits when you do reflected damage. So it's quite possible that still could be a useful amount of damage. It's just not going to be the answer. It'll be an answer. Damage taken from Smite is going to be capped as well. Again, that's how the boss works on Demon Lord as well. Smite damage is actually capped on that boss as well. There we go. What am I seeing from this? Well, poisons are going to be difficult. You're going to want to figure out how to deal with poisons. So champions that are immune to poisons or can shrug them off pretty easily are going to be good, and you're not going to want to use a lot of champions that actually have a lot of poisons. Stultus is actually going to be interestingly bad for this, because Stultus will throw the poisons back on the boss, and then he'll throw them back onto your team again. So basically, he will multiply the poisons. So Stultus is going to be actually really bad for this. But block active skills and slow, or decreased speed as it is, could be very critical for you. You're going to want cleansers. You're going to want revivers. You are going to want continuous heal because it will be one of the few ways to actually keep you up and running. So champions like Wither could be interesting to bring back in here, which I think would be good because Wither is a champion that really kind of needs a place in the game again. She's a really good healer, but she's kind of been power crept in a lot of ways. She doesn't really useful in arena anymore like she used to be. She's just super tanky and annoying. Champions like Senna. I think Senna will actually be a beast because Senna gives you the revive, gives you the continuous heals, gives you a bunch of turn meter with those continuous heals as well. So you will take a bunch of extra turns. Could be kind of fun. Demitha could be interesting because she does throw some continuous heals up there as well. And plus she plays with her buffs. Whether or not block damage or unkillable will be very useful in this boss. We'll see. He does have a cleanse, or effectively some way to steal these things. So it's going to be kind of interesting. There's some turn meter stuff going on here as well. So we may not be able to tune this clan boss, which means that this is going to be a daily clan boss that's going to really suck. I suspect we'll figure out a way to tune it. People are smart. But yeah, there's an awful lot going on with this boss, and this is just one of the 2 forms. So honestly, until I get a chance to play with this, which is probably not going to be, I don't have access to a test server. I don't have any inside information. So until I get a chance to play with this in person, I don't know what I can really learn from this other than reading some of the skills and learning what the boss does. So hopefully we'll get some more news on the boss coming soon. But given the fact that we've got most of these skills here right now, and to be fair, since Polarium hasn't officially announced this yet through their normal channels, this could still change. So we'll definitely see whether or not this works. But, hopefully you find this interesting. Hopefully you find my breakdown useful. And if you get a chance, check out some of my other videos. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. I appreciate you guys. You all have a good one. And until the next video, I'm Bront CatHerder.